The galaxy had grown accustomed to its own silence. Fleets drifted like ancient monuments, trade lanes crawled with predictable patterns, and the great empires believed they understood every threat, every anomaly, every civilization worth their attention. Yet in the dim edges of the Perseus Reach, a strange report reached the Imperial High Archive, one describing a skirmish that should have been impossible. A minor pirate faction had been eliminated in under 3 minutes by a force no one recognized, a strike team whose coordination and efficiency defied logic. The last surviving sensor logs showed blurred shapes moving like shadows through fire, weapons firing with impossible precision. Bodies human in silhouette, but enhanced far beyond baseline biology. The Empire dismissed the story as fabrication. Humans were extinct, after all. A relic species, wiped out in the Orion Cataclysm 1,000 years ago. But then another report surfaced. And another. And another, each more unbelievable than the last. The truth began to take shape not through diplomacy, not through contact, but through fear. Whole fleets found themselves disabled without casualties. Warlords vanished, leaving only silent, drifting wreckage. A single unknown vessel would drop out of warp, emit a pulse of light like a heartbeat, and enemies would fall. None of the major empires wanted to admit it, but whispers spread like wildfire. Humans weren't extinct. They had evolved. Hidden. Prepared. And now, for reasons no one understood, they were returning, across the galaxy. Inadequate explanations filled council chambers. AI strategists replayed combat logs and broke under the weight of contradictions. Alien scientists argued over impossibilities. But nothing brought clarity. Until the day the Empire received a subspace alert so powerful it triggered a full-spectrum alarm across every major outpost. A single ship had arrived at the Imperial border. A ship larger, darker, and more terrifying than anything they had catalogued. Its hull drank starlight. Its silhouette looked carved from the bones of mountains. Its engines burned like fragments of a dying star. And written on its frontal plate were letters in an ancient, almost forgotten language, Earth Fleet Vanguard. The Empire reacted with reflexive arrogance. They scrambled 7 battle groups, activating war protocols not used in centuries. Dreadnoughts formed a wall of steel. Titans unfolded wings of radiation and laser fire. Thousands of fighters launched like swarming sparks across the void. The Empire thought this show of force would intimidate the newcomers. Instead, the human vessel simply drifted forward, calm, slow, deliberate, like a predator whose hunger had long been replaced by certainty. Without firing a shot, it disabled the entire formation. Engines shut down. Shields collapsed. Weapons froze. It was not brute force. It was precision, perfect, terrifying precision. Human systems infiltrated the Imperial fleet and gently switched them off as if tucking a child into bed. The entire armada hovered motionless as the human ship passed through their ranks, scanning, observing, evaluating. And then, with quiet confidence, it moved deeper into Imperial space as if it belonged there. Rumors erupted. Fear took hold. If this was a scout, if this was just one ship, what did a full human fleet look like? What had they become in their 1,000-year silence? The Empire turned to diplomacy out of desperation. They sent envoys, ambassadors, even psychic communicators. None of whom returned. They deployed stealth probes, which were instantly ejected back across the border, fully intact, with a single message encoded inside each one. A message simple, chilling, and undeniable: we are not your enemy. Do not become ours. The galaxy felt something it had not felt in ages: uncertainty. The Empire assembled the Grand Forum, a gathering of every admiral, senator, and strategic mind in their domain. They studied maps, intelligence reports, and sensor logs, trying to predict human intentions. But none reached the correct conclusion, because none understood how humans thought anymore. They saw strength and assumed conquest. They saw precision and assumed domination. They saw silence and assumed strategy. Humans saw something else entirely. They saw a galaxy worth guarding, but the galaxy did not understand guardianship. It understood fear. And so when a second human vessel appeared, smaller, sleeker, humming with quiet power, the Empire panicked. Fleets rushed to intercept. Weapons charged. And humanity responded not with fire, not with force, but with a transmission. A calm, steady voice speaking in a dialect untouched for millennia, "We are returning only what belongs to us." As if summoned by that single message, more ships appeared, hundreds, then thousands, sliding out of warp in elegant arcs of blue radiance. Predators in silhouette. Orchestral in motion. Alien observers stared in stunned silence. This was an army. A fleet. A civilization reborn. But as terrifying as it looked, even more terrifying was the unmistakable truth whispered across imperial councils, repeated by AI strategists, and confirmed by trembling analysts studying human movements. This wasn't their full force, not even close. It was merely the beginning. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy's understanding of power was about to be rewritten forever. The night over the Ashen Plateau trembled as the last echoes of the human transmission faded into space. Across the fractured remnants of the once great Var Dominion, refugees huddled beneath shattered sky domes. Whispering of the impossible. Of humans who stood where others fled, even light years away, the shockwave of Earth's declaration rippled through the galactic undercurrents. Hidden satellites, abandoned by empires long dead, picked up the signal and relayed it deeper, farther, into territories where ancient powers stirred from slumber, and aboard the war-torn starcruiser Helios Vanguard, Captain Eric Hale stood before the holographic projection of the enemy fleet, an armada so vast its mass signatures resembled a small moon. The Kotor swarm wasn't invading, it was erasing. Every planet in their path had gone dark. A chain of extinguished lights on the tactical map, Eric's jaw tightened. Humanity was young, reckless, underestimated. But never fragile. What the galaxy mistook for naivete was momentum, momentum carved from centuries of survival against famine, war, and extinction events. The Helios Vanguard's crew moved with quiet determination. Engineers crawled through plasma conduits that spat sparks like angry fire serpents. Medtechs held trembling hands of terrified civilians evacuated from frontier colonies. Marines recited silent oaths, checking exosuit seals while the glow of hazard lights painted their armor blood red. At the heart of it all, Commander Lyra Vance entered the bridge. Her expression was calm, but beneath the surface, her thoughts churned like a gravitational storm. She had seen the swarm once before, on Vega 9, where a population of 5 million vanished in 8 minutes. She had sworn then that if the creatures returned, she'd never run again. "Eric," she said quietly. "The Kotor are accelerating. Their vanguard will breach human space in 30 hours. Maybe less." He didn't look away from the star map. "Then we make the galaxy remember what humans do when time runs out." A silence spread, not fearful, but resolute, across the fleet. Transmissions opened as Eric broadcast to every ship, every soldier, every frightened civilian tucked inside sealed hulls. His voice echoed across thousands of decks and millions of speakers, a steady flame burning in the vast dark. We were not supposed to matter. Not to the Dominion. Not to the Council. Not to whatever hides beyond the void. But we do. We matter because we choose to stand when others kneel. We matter because extinction doesn't frighten us, failure does. He paused as the crew leaned in. And if the Kotor want humanity, they will have to dig us out of hell itself. A rumble of determination swept through the fleet like a rising storm. Meanwhile, in the outer array, deep space sensors glitched again. First static. Then a soft trembling hum. Then movement. Something enormous shifted in the dark, far beyond the swarm, its energy signature older than recorded history. A signal pulsed once. Like a heartbeat, astronomers froze. Machines stalled. AI cores flickered. For a moment, it felt like the universe exhaled after holding its breath for eons. On Earth, beneath the fortified shield of the Terran defense wall, children pointed at the night sky as a strange ripple of light swept across the horizon. The war had not yet begun, but the galaxy, every species, every empire, every forgotten world, felt the same realization settle over them like ash falling from a dying star. Humanity had entered a battle they were never meant to survive. And yet, something ancient had awakened to watch. The Helios Vanguard tore through the outer fringe of human territory like a storm of living knives. Their ships, organic, shifting, pulsing with sickly luminescence, moved in impossible patterns that defied conventional physics. They didn't maneuver, they swarmed. They didn't fire weapons, they exhaled destruction. On the Helios Vanguard's bridge, alarms flashed crimson as a holographic display projected the first confirmed losses. Mining Outpost Delta 14. Silent. Patrol Wing 6. Gone. The Elysium Beacon, a station the size of a city, reduced to drifting molten fragments that glowed like fresh wounds against the dark. Commander Lyra Vance swallowed hard but didn't break. She'd reviewed every recorded battle against the swarm during her training. She knew the casualties. She knew the odds. But seeing entire worlds reduced to nothing in minutes. That was different, Captain, she said steadily. We don't have long. If they keep this pace, they'll reach the Archeon Gate by dawn. The Archeon Gate, Earth's last strategic fortress. If it fell, there would be nothing between the swarm and billions of lives. Captain Eric Hale stepped toward the central display. Shadows streaked across his face as explosions flickered in the projection. Prepare the wake engines, he said quietly. The bridge crew froze. Even Lyra turned sharply. Eric. The wake engines aren't combat tested. We don't know what they'll do to the ship, or us. He met her stare. We know what happens if we don't use them. The wake engines, humanity's forbidden prototype, could tear a vessel through subspace faster than any known drive, but the side effects were catastrophic. Hulls cracked. Crew suffered neurostatic disorientation. Some ships emerged without their shadows. Some crews emerged missing, but humanity had run out of safe options. Lyra exhaled slowly, then nodded once. Orders echoed through the ship. Massive reactors shook as containment seals unlocked. Blue-white energy rippled along the hull like lightning crawling over metal skin. Below deck, engineers clung to railings as the ship trembled. Plasma surged through conduits with the sound of roaring waterfalls. The massive engines at the rear of the Helios Vanguard unfolded like mechanical wings, splitting open to reveal shimmering fractal patterns that bent reality around them. As the ship prepared to launch, a new signal pulsed through every comm channel, deep, resonant, ancient. It wasn't human. It wasn't Kotor. It was older than both. Eric's head snapped toward the sensory officer. What is that? I don't know, sir. But it's broadcasting across subspace, using harmonics we've never seen. It's almost like it's calling something. Before they could decode it, the Kotor arrived. A swarm of 70,000 ships erupted from subspace directly ahead of them, blackening the tactical display. The bridge shook as the shockwave hit the hull like a hammer. Lyra grabbed the railing. They're early. Eric's voice hardened, every syllable a declaration. All hands, brace for wake jump. The Helios Vanguard screamed as the engines ignited. Space twisted. Stars elongated into streaks of white. The crew felt reality folding around them like a collapsing metal lung. Gravity spiked, then vanished. For a moment, everyone heard whispers, thousands of voices echoing through their minds like memories that weren't theirs. Then, silence. A silence so total it felt like the universe had paused. The ship re-emerged in a region of space none of their charts identified. A void of cosmic shadows. A region untouched by time. Nebulas hung like colossal frozen storms. Dead stars lay cracked like broken diamonds. But something else was there, something enormous, something watching, a structure, or a being, drifted before them. Black metal. Ancient. Shaped like an eye that had been closed for millennia. But now, slowly, was beginning to open. Lyra whispered, breathless, "Eric. We weren't alone when we jumped." And from the darkness, the ancient signal pulsed again, stronger this time, almost welcoming. The structure unfolded like the petals of a cosmic flower awakening after an age of dreamless sleep. Each segment moved without friction or sound, gliding with weightless precision. What appeared metallic at first now shimmered with impossible textures, part machine, part mineral, part something alive. Patterns across its colossal surface pulsed in rhythms older than any human language, as though the void itself had a heartbeat. The Helios Vanguard drifted toward it, helpless against the pull. Their thrusters fired automatically, but the engines barely made a whisper against the unseen force drawing them closer. No alarm sounded. No collision warnings. The ship's systems didn't even recognize they were accelerating. It was as though the laws of physics within this region had been rewritten by someone, or something, with complete authority. Eric Hale braced himself beside the command chair as the main display filled with the impossible construct. "Maintain power to all shields," he said, though his voice sounded small against the vastness. Lyra scanned desperately through layers of data, but none of it made sense. "Eric. The object is mapping our systems. It's reading everything, our hull composition, our reactor output, even our neural link frequencies." She swallowed hard. "It's dissecting us like we're an open book." Before Eric could reply, the construct flashed. A pulse of energy rippled outward, flowing through the Helios Vanguard like a tidal wave of light. Every console went dark. Every display vanished. For a fraction of a second, even thought seemed to stop. Crew members staggered as if struck, clutching their temples, gasping for air that suddenly felt colder. Then the lights returned, but not as they were. The ship's interfaces now glowed with unfamiliar symbols, shifting and rotating in elegant spirals. Human text intermingled with glyphs no human had ever written. Systems they didn't have suddenly appeared on the menu. The ship had not been damaged. It had been augmented. Eric steadied himself. "Lyra, report." She stared at the data in stunned disbelief. "This isn't possible. Our reactor output has tripled. No, quadrupled. We're running on technology we don't understand. It's rewriting our ship in real time." Another pulse reverberated through the hull, this one softer, almost like a breath. The crew felt it. In their bones. In their nerves. A presence. Not hostile. But vast, like an ocean watching a single grain of sand. A voice emerged, not through the speakers, but inside their minds. Spoken without words, understood without translation, children of soul. Why have you awakened the old paths? Lyra froze, breath caught in her throat. Eric's heart hammered. The crew looked around, searching for the source, but the voice came from everywhere at once, filling their thoughts like a shared dream. A surge of light swept across the construct, revealing its true shape. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't a station, it was a gateway larger than planets. Its inner ring rotated slowly as cosmic dust curved around it in defiance of gravity. And then they saw them, figures made of radiance and geometry, drifting along the surface of the structure like sentinels. Not alive in the biological sense, nor robotic. They were something beyond definition, guardians of a forgotten empire lost long before humanity's first spark. The voice returned, "You flee from the devourers of flesh and light. We have seen your kind before. Fragile. Determined. Dangerous when cornered." Eric found his voice, speaking more to the presence than to the crew. "If you know the Kotor, then you know we can't outrun them. We need to return to protect our people." The gate rippled as if considering his words. "You seek strength. You seek knowledge. You seek survival. The path is offered, but its price will change you. A pulse rippled outward, and suddenly the surrounding darkness peeled back like curtains. Beyond the gate, another region of space appeared, one filled with familiar constellations. Lyra's eyes widened. Eric. That's home. That's our galaxy. Our exact vector to the Archeon gate. The construct responded with a final whisper through their minds, then enter. And carry our memory into your war. The Helios Vanguard drifted forward as the gate fully ignited, flooding space with blinding white fire. Time fractured. Light twisted. Space folded inward, and the ship crossed the threshold, reborn, reforged, and no longer returning as the vessel that had fled. It emerged into a universe that had no idea what humanity had become. The stars snapped back into existence all at once, like a curtain pulled from the eyes of a blind titan. The Helios Vanguard emerged not drifting, but roaring into the void with a momentum it had not possessed before. Space thrummed around it, charged, alive, trembling as if aware that something ancient had arrived wearing the shape of a human vessel. Eric Hale gripped the console as the ship stabilized. Status. But he already sensed the answer. The Vanguard was no longer the ship he had commanded. It moved with a responsiveness that bordered on instinct, responding to thought before command. Its hull shimmered in ways metal never should, folding starlight into strange reflections. The reactor at its core pulsed with a rhythm that did not belong to fusion or antimatter, but something older. Something living. Lyra scanned the void, breath uneven. We're back in known space. Same sector. Same drift. But Eric. The Kotor are already here. And they're not alone. The viewscreen expanded, revealing a nightmare bleeding across the stars, a Kotor siege cluster, 40 ships arranged in a crushing formation, surrounded a crippled Alliance outpost. Flames flickered across its hull as escape pods scattered like sparks from a dying fire. The crew went silent. The outpost wasn't just any outpost, it was Eric and Lyra's home station. Their childhood streets. Their people. Their families. Eric's jaw tensed. Open all channels. But before they could respond, before the Vanguard could send a single signal, something else happened. The Kotor ships turned. Not toward the burning station, but toward them, every single ship, as though they sensed the change, as though they smelled the ancient power woven into the Vanguard's newly forged bones. Lyra's whisper trembled. Eric. They remember the old technology. They fear it. They know what we carry. The Kotor fleet roared to life, weapons unfolding, energy crackling across their blackened spines. They fired without hesitation, a torrent of plasma, void rippers. Graviton spears, and dark matter lances that could have shredded a dreadnought into vapor. The storm hit, but the Vanguard did not break. It absorbed the blow like stone taking rain. The hull rippled as the alien augmentation activated on its own, rewriting the incoming energy into harmless arcs of light that danced across the ship like fireflies. The Kotor hesitated. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they hesitated. Eric felt the ship responding to him, not through commands, but through intent. It was offering options. Pathways. Weapons. Systems. Capabilities humanity had never possessed. He reached out mentally, his thoughts brushing against the ship's awakening consciousness. It whispered back, not in words, but in possibility. He understood, and he accepted. The Vanguard unfurled wings of radiant energy, sleek, burning, geometric structures extending from the hull like the plumage of a cosmic phoenix. Space distorted around them as the ship's new drives ignited. One moment the Vanguard was still, the next it was among the Kotor fleet like lightning tearing through a forest. Its weapons didn't fire projectiles, they rewrote reality. Lances of crystalline light carved through the enemy ships, unraveling metal, flesh, and armor into drifting dust. Each shot bent space, folding the distance so that targets died before they even appeared on the tactical screen. The Kotor retaliated, screaming through the void, but their roars were drowned out by the storm the Vanguard commanded. Lyra watched in awe and terror as Eric guided the ship like a conductor shaping a symphony of annihilation. This is beyond weaponry, she breathed. We're wielding the technology of a civilization that saw galaxies as clay. One by one, the Kotor ships burst into rings of collapsing light, their deaths silent and swift. The last remaining vessel tried to flee. It didn't make it far. The Vanguard appeared before it without crossing the space between, simply choosing to exist where it needed to be. A single pulse of light ended the Kotor's retreat forever. Silence fell. The battlefield was a graveyard of glowing dust, and the burning outpost, Eric and Lyra's home, still drifted in agony. Eric exhaled shakily. Prepare rescue shuttles. Get me a channel. The comm crackled. A familiar voice, weak, disbelieving, came through. Eric. Lyra. Gods, is that you? How did you come back? Lyra's eyes filled. There wasn't time for explanations, only urgency. We're here now. Hold on. Help is coming. The crew moved quickly, launching shuttles, stabilizing the outpost's remaining life support, pulling survivors from collapsed corridors. The wounded, the terrified, the children, they all stared at the Vanguard's radiant form with a mixture of awe and dread. As if looking upon something divine, and in the quiet moments between rescue calls, Eric looked out at the debris field, the ashes of the Kotor, knowing this was only the beginning. Whatever had awakened inside their ship had not done so by accident. The galaxy had shifted. Humanity had crossed a threshold it could never return from, and soon, every empire would learn what the Kotor had learned today. Humanity was no longer prey, it was ascending. The galaxy reacted long before the news officially spread. Sensors whispered of impossible signatures. Patrol fleets reported a vessel that moved like a thought and struck like a collapsing star. Whisper networks traded rumors of a warship that glowed with living light. Old empires stiffened. Pirate clans vanished. Entire borders went silent, waiting. Watching, the Helios Vanguard drifted through this uneasy quiet like a myth made real. Eric stood on the command deck, staring at the swirling nebula ahead, a luminous ocean of cosmic storms. Somewhere beyond it, the Kotor warmind was gathering everything it had. Not a fleet. Not an armada. A crusade. A species returning to finish a hunt it believed it had already won. Lyra's voice trembled with restrained urgency. Long-range scans confirm it. Every Kotor war nest within 50 sectors is converging. They're not simply preparing for war. They're preparing for extinction. Eric absorbed this in silence. The enemy wasn't coming to negotiate. They weren't coming to threaten. They were coming to erase humanity again, completely, without hesitation, without mercy. But humanity had something now that no one understood, something both magnificent and terrifying. The Vanguard shifted around him, as if sensing his resolve. The new systems hummed, softly, almost soothingly, alive in ways that defied engineering. The ship felt like a sleeping giant stirring beneath his touch, ancient power waiting for his call. He breathed deeply. Then we meet them head-on. As the ship entered the nebula, the stars dissolved into swirling gold and electric blue currents. Lightning arced across the hull. But the Vanguard drank the energy rather than resisting it. Lyra's screens flickered with impossible readings, temporal drift harmonics, dimensional stress signatures, gravitational deviations that formed patterns no sentient mind should understand. Deep in the nebula's core, they found it, a void so vast and dark it swallowed the light around it, the Kotor crusade, not hundreds, not thousands, tens of thousands of warships, each large enough to level a continent, each armed with the most brutal weapons the species had ever forged. Their formation spanned the nebula like a tide of mechanical beasts, their hulls marked with ancient kill sigils, their engines burning with radioactive hatred. Lyra whispered, Eric. No empire has ever faced that many. This is a species entering holy war. Eric felt the ship lift beneath him, not physically, but in shared intent. The Vanguard was ready. It had chosen humanity. It had chosen him. He stepped forward, eyes fixed on the monstrous fleet. Then let's show them what they feared in the dark. The Vanguard ignited, wings of radiant energy unfurled, stretching hundreds of meters, shimmering with liquid starlight. Reality warped around the ship as the alien augmentation activated at full power. The nebula churned like an ocean caught in a hurricane, its colors bending around the warship like it was the center of gravity itself. The Kotor fleet roared forward. Weapons charged across thousands of hulls, turning the darkness into a continent of fire. Eric didn't flinch. The Vanguard leapt. It didn't accelerate. It simply was elsewhere. A heartbeat later, it appeared inside the Kotor lines, where no ship could logically be, moving between warships that outmassed it by kilometers. Light erupted from its wings, forming crystalline arcs that sliced entire dreadnoughts into drifting rings of molten debris. The Kotor fired. 1 billion tons of annihilation energy converged. The Vanguard opened its shield lattice, and the universe folded around the ship like a closing flower. When the light faded, the fleet realized the truth. The warship was unharmed. It moved again, faster than thought, faster than light, faster than every law the galaxy trusted. The nebula spiraled into chaos as the Vanguard carved through the crusade like a star burning through night-rotted paper. Eric felt the ship's consciousness sync with his own. It wasn't possession. It wasn't control. It was partnership. Two wills shaping a single destiny. He guided the ship not through commands, but through intention, through emotion, through vision. The crew watched in awe as the Vanguard's weapons shifted with each moment, sometimes beams of folded space, sometimes arcs of gravity, sometimes bursts of crystalline fragmentation that tore warships apart from the inside. But the enemy adapted. A shape emerged from the heart of the crusade, a colossal Kotor Titan ship, a world killer draped in the bones of civilizations long dead. Its eyes glowed with dark fire. Its roar shook the nebula, vibrating through every molecule. It fired, a beam so dense, so violent, that it bent the nebula into a vortex of collapsing starlight. Eric reached for the Vanguard with everything he was. The ship answered. A sphere of pure white light bloomed from its core, expanding in perfect silence. When the Titan's beam touched the sphere, it shattered into harmless glitter. The white light pulsed again, once, twice, each pulse rewriting the battlefield. The Kotor felt fear. They turned to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. Eric guided the Vanguard directly toward the Titan ship. The nebula warped. The stars twisted. For a breath, time itself hesitated, then the Vanguard struck, a silent flash, a ripple of light, and the Titan ship, symbol of Kotor's supremacy, folded into a collapsing star, its death echoing across the nebula like the world ending. The fleet broke, the crusade ended, and in the stillness that followed, the nebula returned to its quiet, ancient beauty. The Vanguard hovered alone in the aftermath, glowing softly. No longer a weapon of devastation but a guardian of the fragile survivors. Scattered across the galaxy, Lyra placed a hand on Eric's shoulder. They'll all be coming soon. Not just the Kotor. Every empire. Every council. Every power that thought humanity was gone. Eric nodded slowly, then let them come. Outside, the nebula parted, revealing a path of shimmering starlight stretching toward the horizon of the galaxy. An invitation, a challenge, a promise. Humanity had returned, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same.